Hello and welcome back to Nerd Doc. In this video, we're going to take a look at what's next for Thor Odinson in the MCU following the events of Thor Love and Thunder. There will be spoilers for Thor Love and Thunder, but if you do not wish to be spoiled, you can check out our spoiler-free review linked in the description below. You'll also find all of our other Love and Thunder videos, including what's next for Jane Foster, the origins of the new character introduced in the post-credit scenes, and general coverage of the ending and post-credit scenes. We'll be speculating on what we expect from Thor in the future of the MCU based on the events of Thor Love and Thunder, but if you have any theories of your own or questions about our theories, leave a comment below and we'll respond as best we can. We can't discuss what's next for Thor without first talking about his new daughter. At the end of Love and Thunder, Thor basically adopts Gorr the God Butcher's daughter. This is very different from the comics, where all of Gorr's family dies and never comes back. Thor's new daughter is referred to as Love to Thor's Thunder in the movie, and even Chris Hemsworth said she was playing Love in a recent interview, since it's his daughter India Rose Hemsworth playing the character. We speculated in our Ending Explained video that there's a small chance this is a young version of Mistress Love, a very powerful being from the comics, but it's hard to say at the moment. What we do know is that Thor considers her to be his daughter. She was made from eternity, meaning she has a number of superpowers of her own, including laser beams that shoot from her eyes and super strength, and she can fight with Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. Whether she's a new character made for the MCU, an existing character like Mistress Love, or is a new MCU take on an existing character like Thor's son from the comics, Gorr's daughter is going to be tagging along with Thor for the foreseeable future. She's almost certain to be in Thor 5 or whatever project we see Thor in next. Hercules is also in the MCU now and has been instructed by Zeus to go after Thor, but more specifically, that humans would learn to fear the gods once again. More often than not, Hercules is an ally to Thor in the comics. They have a rivalry, but rarely is Hercules an actual bad guy. More than likely, Hercules appears in Thor 5, starts some trouble on Earth causing Thor to fight him, but by the end of the movie, the two will have teamed up to fight the real antagonist of the film. This could potentially be some MCU variation of the Chaos War arc in which Hercules had to save the multiverse, but there is a fair amount of setup needed to make that work, although you could say the same thing about Civil War and Marvel was still able to pull off some version of that. With rumors of a World War Hulk movie coming within the next few years, we could see the introduction of Amadeus Cho, and both him and Hercules siding with Hulk. This would allow Hercules to be seen as a bad guy for at least some of the movie, but in the end, he would team up with Thor to stop Hulk from rampaging. Again, this wouldn't be a one-to-one with the comics, but we already know the MCU rarely does that. With so few stories of Hercules and Thor actually battling, the MCU will likely try to piggyback on something else to make them adversaries. Reliable sources claim Jane Foster is getting a solo project, which probably won't feature Thor in any kind of major role, unless it tackles the War of the Realms, but even in that instance, Marvel could replace Thor's role with someone like Beta Ray Bill. Our theory is that we're going to start moving into the King Thor story arcs in the comics. The MCU probably won't take it as far as to bring in something like, say, the Church of Thor and all of that, but some version of the Consortium of Nations and a semi-evil Thor would be a great turn for the character in the MCU. With Jane in Valhalla, you can introduce Enchantress as Thor's new love interest. This could be the original Enchantress, or even Sylvie from the Loki series if they want to make it a bit weird. They definitely get some great one-liners if they go that route. You could also bring Loki back into the fold from the TVA, who tries to reason with Thor, completely flipping that dynamic around. There's a lot Marvel can do with the King Thor story. Even if they don't want Thor to have a slightly evil turn in the MCU, they can make Bor, Thor's grandfather, a more prominent character in the MCU, following a story arc from the comics in which Loki travels back in time and brings Bor to the present. We already got a glimpse of Bor in Thor the Dark World, so bringing him back as a main character isn't out of the question. This story in the comics involves Doctor Doom, who is rumored to make his first MCU appearance later this year. During most of this process in the comics, Loki is actually in a female body, so it wouldn't be that far of a departure to simply make this Sylvie. That way you don't undo any of the good Loki has done over the past few years, and he can still be good guy Loki, while Sylvie takes over the evil Loki role. If Marvel ends up adding Kid Loki to the Young Avengers, he could even play a role in this, although Sylvie seems like a better choice here. Taking all this one step further, they could add the Siege comic arc, similar to how they combine Planet Hulk and Ragnarok. In the Siege, the Dark Avengers attack Asgard. There are already rumors that Val is recruiting the Thunderbolts or possibly the Dark Avengers, and that both teams will eventually exist in the MCU in the future, although likely not at the same time. Depending on when we get the next Thor film, the Dark Avengers or Thunderbolts could already be established. There's a Thunderbolts project that is currently rumored to arrive sometime in 2024 or possibly early 2025. As you can see, there are lots of paths for Thor in the future of the MCU, but most of them would require at least a slightly more serious Thor than what we got in Love and Thunder. If they tone him back down to be closer to what we got in Infinity War and Endgame, it would offer a nice balance between one-liner Thor and serious Thor. Then we can have Thor team back up with Jane for the War of the Realms, or whatever new adventure awaits them after Valkyrie dies and Jane takes over that mantle. So what do you think? Should Thor's grandfather become a main character in Thor 5? Is the MCU moving toward King Thor? Is Thor's daughter a brand new character or someone we already know from the comics? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. For now, that wraps up this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who loves Thor and the MCU.